Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, my precious pack, and welcome back once more to VEGA Conflict, and it's time to take a quick look at the Artemis, and more specifically, share thoughts about it and stuff like that. So first and foremost, I just want to clear this out of the way. The first experience I had with it was negative. It wasn't at all what I was going to expect with a drone ship and stuff like that. When you hear a drone ship, you expect it to spawn drones in a multitude and have some versatility in that regard. No, not with the Artemis. It spawns one drone, and that's it. It's hard capped at one. You can't get any more or anything like that. Second, Vengeance Overdrive, while the weapon disruption is the saving grace, the weapon speed bonus, the mobility and stuff like that, it's not really noticeable at all. As I've noticed, when it activates, it's moving quickly enough already that it doesn't even seem noticeable. You just watch it float around and it seems completely useless. 15%, 15%, 15%. Yeah, it seems completely useless due to the speed of the ship. I would have rather had higher charge disruption and stuff like that at Mark 1 over increased mobility that doesn't even feel all that useful. So, now what I want to do, naturally, I want to take a look at it and how it behaves in combat. So, let's go ahead and let's get this out of the way, and let's take a quick look at the combat test I had. Yeah, in-planet combat test. So these tests are always carried out in-planet when I'm testing them, because most of the fleets, they're always easily accessible and stuff like that. So, 5,000 damage, drone launches. Completely straightforwards and whatnot. Drone is destroyed, Vengeance activates, and you don't really see the speed boost, you don't really see the weapon speed increase, you don't see much of anything with it. Now, launch the drone again for doing 5,000 damage, and that's all there is to it. That's all there really is to the drone. That's how it exists. On the other hand of things, on the other side, let's go ahead and let's take a look at the Volt driver real quick. I did mention in the previous video, but I didn't show it. It has a much longer range due to the beam capacitor. Now, that vector you see to the right of the Zettabyte, that has Horde Cannon, and I have maxed out Cobus. That has the same range as the other Nova driver. That has the same range as the other drivers. That goes to show the power of kiting now. If you use the Volt driver, you should have no issues kiting most of the high-level targets in the game because you'll be able to outrange them. So, new tactic for us to use is to kite the targets, because the development team puts overpowered stuff in them in the first place. If you have a Dreadnought, by all means, use it to farm. Next up, I want to take a quick look at the targets. So, this is the Umbral Warmaster 100. And by all intents and purposes, it could have been vastly better in my eyes. It's representing Tier 8 heavily, as the only things in it that are Tier 7 are the Ericos. I feel like the Ericos were a waste of space because it's representing Tier 8. It could have had Wendigos in the place of every single one of the Ericos, and it would have seemed just fine to me. Because it consists of Amaroks, Valravens, and Ericos. Drop the Ericos, switch them out for Wendigos, and you have something a little bit more interesting going on. But as it is now, it really isn't that interesting. It seems quite bland, honestly, and the same is with the same said... Allow me to untie my tongue real quick. The same can be said about the Pharmacon target, except for that they haven't gotten their Titan for Tier 8 yet. They're going to be the closing faction for Tier 8 before we make the transition and move into Tier 9 after a short reprieve during July, where we should be getting a special ship if I remember correctly. And one thing that I want to do right now is just sit back, relax, and what I'm doing with videos like this, I'm playing around with the editing. As you noticed, I was just poking around a little bit. I didn't heavily edit this video. Well, not that you guys see, but it took me a lot longer than it should have, but practice makes perfect. Perfection isn't my goal. As you can tell with the fact that I'm always tired in the videos. Now, getting back on the topic of the video, what can you use to bring these targets down? Well, in the case of this one, you should be able to actually take it down with some high mark level tier 7 Pharmacon, and if you time it all correctly, you should be able to kite just about everything in this fleet and destroy it, with possibly Daemons and some Trojans to rush the Valravens, and for manageable repair time. As for the Pharmacon target, it might be iffy, but you might be able to do it with 5 Zeuses and a Sovereign. Kite the shorter range targets with the Sovereign to pick them off, and make sure you have full Xeno fittings for all of them, with high damage resistance to... Pardon me for just a moment while I yawn. But as I was saying, if you have a high resistance to certain damage types, what I'd recommend is use resonant armor that's resistant to energy, resistors that are built up against kinetic. No, wait. The entire fleet does energy damage, I forgot. Just focus heavily on energy resistance, and you should be fine for the most part. There are a few situations where I could recommend it having different fittings and stuff like that, but for the most part, Zeus with glance cannons, and a Sovereign equipped with all Xeno weaponry. Xeno Cyclotrons is just as much as you can pack onto it, and you're going to use it to kite, and you're going to use the Zeuses to take care of the rushing ships and stuff like that if they try and get too close. You're also going to send the Zeuses in after the Vectors to take them out. Expect to take some damage, though, if you're clustered up. Second, how does the Volt Driver work? This is one thing I do want to bring up. When the Volt impacts a ship, it behaves a lot like the Shatter Driver, and if anyone remembers that driver, on impact with anything, the maximum range, the Shatter Driver's round would break into multiple fragments. Volt seems to be doing the same thing, actually. It seems to be impacting at a certain range or impacting a target, and then the energy ball that is launched explodes out behind it into 3 spikes. So it's basically, it goes from a single target long range round into 3 individual rounds behind the target. However, they have a vastly lower damage value than what you might think. A lot more tired than I thought. But that's pretty much what you can do for this target in terms of tactics. If you don't have any of that, if you have access to tier 8, just use Orions and time everything and just catch the Pharmacon when their overdrives are inactive and just pick them apart. And just more or less have a field day. Especially if you have some Xeno-fit Orions on hand. That will really help. And we're going to close up with this target. Repair time is manageable still. And let's go ahead and let's take a look at the final target. So this is the Altairian Warmaster 104, and it consists of Ajax's, Orions, and Artemis's, so it actually represents all of the tier 8 for its faction, unlike the previous, with the Umbral, since they have all their ships but they're not represented. The Altairians are doing it right, even if the fact that they were using the Ajax's, where they stasis themselves to death, as you just saw. Its shield got scratched and it instantly just stopped itself in place. And in regards to the target, you should actually be able to do this target fairly easily with an elite fleet of Ericos and heavy blight weapons fittings, possibly 1 or 2 of them with stasis weapons to help hold the target still, and just focus on high single target damage. So Havoc Cannon, Tick Cannon, things like that should be able to just burn these ones down pretty quickly and pretty easily. But it's just a matter of what do you have available to you at the time. Mark 5 should suffice in the case of not having Elite, because the Ericos, since they're tier 7, Elite isn't an essential upgrade unless you want increased cargo space and mobility. But that's it, everybody. That's everything I have to say about them for now. Be safe out there, my pack. Happy hunting, and as always, see you later.